evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
Also joined by our owner and projectionist at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, Jeff. Say hello, my friend.
Hello, everybody.
We are so over the moon excited about this episode. It's a long time coming. It's not rare that an artist inspires, but it is rare that an artist's lifestyle, the way an artist kind of goes about life, also inspires. And that's the case today as we welcome the great Mitch O'Connell, whose work has appeared in pretty much everything you could imagine, including Rolling Stone, The New Yorker, New York Times, Playboy. He's done album covers for some of our favorite bands on the planet, the Ramones, Weezer, No Doubt, amongst others. And you can see his work and imagery pretty much splashed all over the place, from t-shirts, bumper stickers, books, posters. It's never ending. And finally, we have an excuse to bring him on because Mitch is doing our 2 limited edition posters for the Exhumed Films Mahoning John Waters Filthy Film Festival, and will be joining us finally on the Mahoning lot. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the great Mitch O'Connell.
I started to tear up during the introduction, so thank you so much.
Oh my God. Well, you know, it's so true because not only are every single one of us fans of your work, but we follow you on the socials. And the reason we've wanted to have you on is you are so like-minded in the things that you love, the things that you do, and the things that inspire you. And in a weird way, even beyond the art, that inspires us as well to kind of live our kooky, fanboy-loving life, you know?
Oh, we're all on the same page. I've been a fan of the Mahoning since I first heard about it, even though I have yet to attend, but I'm on the 100% fan page of what you guys are up to.
Oh my gosh, we love that. When did you hear about the Mahoning Drive-In Theater? How did it get on your radar? I know at a certain
the films you show are always extraordinary, completely what I love watching. It's a mecca for the culture that I like. That weird, kitsch, wonderful exploitation, fun, wild cinema that is so exciting. And of course, I watched the documentary, which was fantastic. So
awesome.
You guys are tremendous. And I'm really happy to be involved with this. And I'm working. I know I was offered this opportunity to do the 2 John Waters posters like 6 months ago, and it's taken me forever. And I am furiously working. If people think, what is Mitch doing? Because I asked him half a year ago. What is his problem? I have many problems, but I'm getting that thing done because it's like completely what I love to draw. They're going to be good.
It's such a cool concept. The idea that, you know, you have to come both nights. We're doing different posters each night. And the fandom that surrounds any event that we do at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, it's so thick. But, you know, John Waters is something very special and means a lot to alternative and transgressive cinema. And the idea that he's coming out, it's a true honor and a stamp and badge of honor, you know?
It seems you guys go out to make every night at the drive-in an extraordinary fun event, but this seems tenfold, if not 100-fold of what you
over
do
the top.
Yes.
We're going all in on this one, that's for sure. So let's start. Obviously, this is the drive-in podcast, so let's dig into some of your love of the drive-in. Obviously, some of your art is inspired and geared toward the drive-in. You've done the art for us and other drive-ins across the country. What's your past with drive-ins? Were you lucky enough to have one as a kid? Did it strike you later in life?
Well, as I'm preaching to the choir, but drive-ins are just, they're like the bones of what makes America, America. They're just such a wonderful family classic thing from when did they start? 30s?
Yeah, early 30s.
So that they've been a part of America forever, and they're just such a great fun thing to take the family to or go on a date with. And I've been loving them forever since I was like, I'm sure I'm sharing everybody else's experience, but I would go with my family. Myself and my sister, we'd go in our pajamas. It would be in the station wagon. We would fill up the brown paper shopping bag, 2 feet tall, a foot and a half wide, of popcorn.
Yeah.
Lie in the back. We'd make it to the first feature and fall asleep during the second feature. And the films I saw as a kid are still my favorite films because I saw them at a drive-in. So they really burned into your head. Like The House That Screamed and Castle of Evil. I remember that as a double feature.
That'll stick with you.
House That Screamed. It's like it's almost as if you fell asleep because it's so dreamlike and just, or nightmare-like. So,
it's like a dream state.
Yeah. So, and when I was going to art school in Chicago, I would drive out with friends and we'd go to the dusk to dawn shows, which I think I saw at least 3 of them, and all of them had is it The Rats Are Here and the Werewolves Are Coming, or the
Werewolves Are Coming, the Rats Are Here? Yeah.
I knew. I think no matter what dusk to dawn show you went to, that film was always right. You could not escape that one.
That's amazing. We've never played that. That's got to come around on our bill at one point.
Right. And of course, I have 3 kids, and the youngest is 9, so I've taken them all to the drive-in, and we go to the McHenry one, which is about a good hour and 20 minutes away. We used to have the Cascade, which was maybe 45 minutes away, but that closed right before the pandemic, which was the worst time for a drive-in to close, because who would have known that they would have been one of the few sources of entertainment you could go to during the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're bad timing. So yeah, like all of us, I love drive-ins.
It's just in our blood. And I think when it hits you at a young age, it really does burrow deep, and inspires what you love, what really gets you going. And it's clear in your art that all that stuff and the pop culture of it all is just a part of you. Does that go well beyond the drive-in? Or is there something as a kid that really informed you to kind of steer you in this artistic direction?
My mom was an artist, so I think she always had art supplies at the ready for me. So I always had access to drawing materials, and I have no other skills. So I had to start drawing.
It's a default thing.
And I'm sure, like everybody here, when I was a kid, it was, watching horror films on TV, and a little older, sneaking my dad's Playboy magazines out to our clubhouse. So the combination of horror and sex and all that fun stuff when you're a kid is I'm just regurgitating all of that out now.
Yeah.
Because I love it so much. I love all that imagery.
I found that, I'm a singer, and I grew up a singer, was on stage throughout most of my life. And I found when it came time to do something on my own with my own voice, not something that was written for me or a stage play, one of the hardest things for myself as an artist was finding that voice and that style. Did you ever go through, I'm sure you did, this kind of flex of figuring out what your style is? Because now you have such a standout style. When you look at a piece of art, you can tell that's a Mitch piece.
Well, I moved to Chicago to go to art school. And it seems the main 2 things you want to get going as an artist is a style and having a cool signature.
Well, you got that covered.
I got that covered. So as a kid, I would, I loved comic books, and I always loved the artists that had a recognizable style, like Bernie Wrightson or Jeff Jones or Mike Kaluta and Steranko, and, on and on and on. So I was always shoehorning into style by taking other artists' bits and pieces, and eventually that all fades away, and your whatever style you have kind of just rises to the top. So I think my style is just a love of old 50s and 60s classic illustrations, where they really, not that I'm saying I have it down, but they definitely had it down, where they it wasn't like they were half-assed in anything, because they really knew how fabric folded, or they understood how the human body works. They understood how shadows fall. They understood perspective. So it has that real nice knowledge behind the art. So when I do stuff, it takes me so long to draw stuff. It's so annoying. Getting back to making up excuses for why these posters aren't done. But when you're doing your own stuff, you have no one else to blame except yourself. So you're aiming for something extraordinary. You're aiming for art that's going to just be majestic, that'll, museums will start fighting over it to see who gets to hang it up first.
Yeah.
And when you fall short, it's really frustrating. So I'm doing a lot of like starting and stopping, blah, blah, blah. But they'll be done and they'll be good.
Oh, we know it. And honestly, a big part of doing this event, we're partnering with Exhumed. It was all about, hey, can we connect the dots to finally be able to bring Mitch in for an official poster? And, your love and connection with John Waters was there. And I guess maybe that's a little segue. What's the connection there? You've done pieces for John before. Have you met John before, I take it?
A few times. I did a cover for Rue Morgue, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the magazine.
Yeah.
It had an article about his love of like horror icons like Frankenstein or Wizard of Oz and the like. And I did way before that, I did a bunch of illustrations for Tease magazine for another article on John Waters. And I was at the Dirty Show, which is a big Detroit erotic art festival /art show where John was the big star. And I've been to many of his events, and he used my poster. He used my art for one of his shows. I forget the name of the exact one because I know he changes the title every. So I've worked with him, and I've seen him, and I've got to hang out backstage, but it's not like I'm going to call him up and chit chat or drop by his house for a sandwich. So we're not that tight.
Well, I know that, again, a big choice with going with you for this was it was all his approval. And, he's a fan
good.
too, and was all about the idea of doing these two pieces that come together. I just think it's going to be so much fun.
One time when we saw him, my wife and I went backstage. This was about 10 years ago, and my wife was pregnant with Aiden, who is now 9. And John Waters rubbed her stomach, so we called it a blessing.
Oh, yeah.
The birth announcement was, half of it was John Waters with his hand on my wife's stomach, and the second half was a newborn baby with a pencil mustache.
Come on.
That I had put him. He wasn't really born with a pencil mustache. I did that.
Just to be clear,
it was a cute little birth announcement.
I have loved following you online for many years now, not in a stalker way, but in an appreciation way, and seeing the costumes that you've created for Aiden for various conventions and things. The thing with 2 heads makes me laugh every time I see that picture. The mini Rowdy Piper from They Live, the robot monster. I mean, all of them. It's I hope when he's older he appreciates that it doesn't result in therapy of any sort, because it's another way of expressing your artistic sensibility.
Well, he has a lot of fun being in the competitions, or at least I'm going to say he has a lot of fun to justify it. I do have to promise him multiple Happy Meals just to not complain, because sometimes it's not like I work through all the faults and defects of the costume, so sometimes they're a little awkward to wear, but he's a good trooper. And he does have a fun time. And I'm also hard at work on this year's costume, which I'll give you a verbal sneak peek. It's going to be that tree monster from Hellick Kane.
Oh, Tabanga.
Yes, so
excellent.
And with these costumes, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just like I get the idea of that's going to be a good one because I haven't seen it before, and it's going to be funny. But now I got to figure out how to put it together, and that convention is in a month, so we'll see if I get that.
Now, will you accompany him on the kettle drum as he walks across the stage?
That's a good idea. I will do that.
Okay, I'm just throwing that out
there.
I appreciate any suggestions.
Now that I'm a father, again, I so appreciate that love that you guys have, and seeing him constantly with that pencil in hand, doing drawings, clearly inspired by what his father does. It's such a dream, and it's such a cool thing to watch him grow and kind of create his own style now.
Well, he had his first
You must be
published
so
book.
proud.
His first
That's
published book was,
right.
what, last year,
Yep.
the year before?
Yes, it was a book called Hi Weirdo, and my two older kids are in their 20s, and when they were around 5, 6, 7, I'm reading children's books every night. I'm thinking, why don't I do a children's book? But I just couldn't come up with a concept. And then one day Aiden was walking around the house going, hi weirdo, and fine with me, say hi weirdo all you want. But then I said to him, can you think of something nicer to say? And he said, hi friend. And then the light bulb went off in my head.
Ding.
The whole book is just 2 sentences. It's hi weirdo until the end where he says hi friend, because he's saying hi weirdo, everybody who's strange looking and odd, which I wanted to draw. And at the end, it's revealed that he has 4 legs. So he's just as weird as everybody else, so it was a perfect children's concept, at least in my way of thinking, because it had that whole feel-good theme where, let's all get along and aren't we all different but all alike? And then I got to draw strange weirdness. So it was perfect. So we finally got that done.
Collaborating with your son, it's again this perfect dream come true. And I'm curious, because you do a lot of sharing of your artwork and what you're working on. What percentage is kind of just, hey, I'm going to work on something versus something that's commissioned and you're pushing to work on?
Well, I've been making a living drawing since around 1980. So I've had, let me do the math, about 100 years of doing illustrations where it's assignments, and it's been a blessing. But with commercial jobs, my mindset is just give the client exactly what they want as best I can, and I kind of stay out of the way.
Yeah.
And while I was doing that a lot, I also did a lot of gallery shows and my own art on the side. And the past few years, I've just been doing my own screen prints.
Yeah.
And not really taking on any jobs unless it's something I want to do.
Yeah.
Hence your artwork that I'm working on, because that's something I want to do. Because I can make just as much doing my own stuff and pay the rent and pay food. And I much rather, before I'm dead, I'd rather have a much more of what I feel like drawing out there than me drawing what someone else would like.
I love that so much, because so much of your art, it just feels so inspired. There is something inherent about it where it's clearly made by a fan and somebody who loves this world and the material. And when you can kind of just swing and do your own thing, that must come out tenfold. With your Munchkin now doing art, do you give him any sort of advice as far as kind of finding his style and his voice?
Yeah. And also, to be truthful, he does other stuff besides, emulating me with art. He loves, plays his iPad. He plays Pokemon and collects Pokemon with his big brother. So it's not like we walk arm in arm every second. He has other things he's interested in. I know when with social media, you present some, wonderful view of your life, but if I just posted him playing on his iPad, it'd be kind of dull. But when I help him with artwork, it's mostly like try harder, or let's add some more details, or maybe you want to move this over there, or try this over here. So I will stick in my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
And then he usually frowns and gives me a dirty look and draws it the way he wanted to anyhow.
Well, I love that you include him in the drive-in experience, because we say on the air often and thank the parents often for bringing their kids, because they're truly doing the work for us, passing on the love of the culture to the next generation. Do you find that he really, really loves that atmosphere?
Oh, I mean, how could anybody not love it? Especially the first, you get there early, they have the playground or a big field to run around in, you bring the Frisbee out or a ball to play catch with. You open up the back of the car. I don't bring any food with me because I want to, if I'm going to go to the drive-in, I want the drive-in to have whatever, money is due them. So we always get the drive-in food, and you're sitting back and you're watching a movie. Then you get the great drive-in intermission shorts. You get to honk your horn at the hot dog and the bun making love. It's a wonderful event, and you're out late at night. I mean, nothing could be better.
That's true. My dream growing up was to run a drive-in, but it shifted at a certain point when I had my munchkin, and it was trying to raise a family at the drive-in. And every time I see him running around and playing at the drive-in, I'm like, he doesn't know how good he's got it. He's living the dream.
And
He'll remember.
At our drive-in, we get horns honking during our pre-show when your ad comes up on our screen with the honking drive-ins ad. And the neighbors probably have a special place in their heart for you because every night at a certain time, it's a horn symphony.
Well, that's one of my next big projects because I'm working with a friend of mine who's a film editor and, and much more than that I'm going to animate that scene of all the monsters and all the weirdness at the drive-in, so that I just want to just give away to every drive-in that might want to show it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So hopefully that'll be out by next season.
Oh, that's too cool.
Standing proudly next to the Filmac classics.
Because that's, as I said, just doing stuff I want to do. I want it to exist. I would love to have an animated film that gets shown as a ritual at drive-ins, and I'm, it's much easier to do it for nothing and just throw it out there. And because the point is, I could do a gallery show where I, try to get 20 paintings done and then, try to get 50 people to come to the gallery, or I could do something like an animated film and just give it to the 2,000 screens. I don't know the exact number, that they could show it on, on the big screen at night and at the drive-in. That would be a wonderful art project.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I know during the pandemic, that's when we first got the art, because you had sent it out to a bunch of drive-ins saying, hey, I'd like to give out these free bumper stickers. And we did a whole promo, and the way you've supported the drive-in and its culture, it's so important, because many times when we talk to people about what we do, they'll say, oh, there's still drive-ins around. So anybody who can kind of be a mouthpiece for the culture and promote it, it's really a great thing.
Yes, you want to tell people about good things, and the drive-ins are certainly a good thing that people need to enjoy.
Absolutely.
And give them your business because you want them to stay around.
That's the thing, it's really about the support. If you got one 10 minutes away or 2 hours away, the only way they're staying in biz is if you patronize them.
Right.
I gotta bring it up before I kick it over to the other guys for some questions. I ran a thrift store for a couple of years. My love of the flea market, auction house scene is ripe, and it really had me fall down the rabbit hole of record collecting and comic book collecting, and the deeper love of collecting weird ephemera. Your social media is littered with flea market finds. How much of this stuff goes home with you? At this point, is it just like a total mishmash of cool in the house?
Yes. Short answer. The house is covered with my crap, which is just weird, kitsch, like head scratching nonsense of tasteless, wonderful, crazy objects. So I've filled up this house at least twofold, and I've been giving a lot of it away because I don't really want to keep stuff in boxes in my garage. Either it's on display or I give it away to somebody else.
Yeah.
And when I post I do flea market finds every Sunday on Instagram and just randomly on Facebook because I love sharing it. And I rarely purchase stuff nowadays because I just don't need it. And I don't have the room to display it. But I love finding it and sharing it. It's kind of like the fishing and catch and release. I take a picture of it, and everybody gets to have the same fun I do getting to look at it. And it's nice to get up. I like getting up early in the morning, so I'm happy to get up at 5 Sunday mornings to go to the flea market and have a nice walk around. I usually bring the kids with me, and then we all go out for breakfast. So it's a fun thing to do in the morning.
Yeah. And again, it's that lifestyle thing. And it's clear that all this stuff around you inspires you, and just like all of us have fallen in love with our things and the things that we need to inspire us and get us through our week. I just love that you so wear it on the sleeve proudly, where it's like, yes, of course, it's all in my house on display.
Yeah, you're right. It permeates everything I do. I mean, it's obviously shows up in my artwork, and it's my love of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Comes out everywhere.
Well, we do have our resident artist with us, Tom Bifulco. Is that how you say it, Tom?
Oh, boy.
Tom Bifulco.
Wait a minute.
Crap,
hold on a second. I get a half-hour introduction, and you can't even pronounce Tom's name. That's a little harsh.
It's the running joke because I can't get it. Bifulco.
That was pretty good. I'll give you that.
I'm telling you. I'm getting it. I'm getting better, Tom.
Get mentioned in the beginning too. Can't say my name. I get kicked around like a dog. T-shirts for you guys. Oh my God.
Well, we wanted to give you the time before we kick it over to Mark and Jeff, being the artist and having that artist angle. If you have anything for the great Mitch.
Oh, I got quite a few questions actually. I'm gonna try not to throw the softball ones out there. What inspired you?
Also, no math questions.
No, it actually made me feel really good saying that. Like, you had no skills either, because I was like, oh, thank God, it's not just me. I can't do anything else either except like draw and do whatever I have to do in that regard. So, I'm definitely like a process nerd. I like knowing about how like other people approach things, and just looking at your work. And I think I even heard you talk about this in a presentation, how most of your coloring nowadays is all done. I think you mentioned that like Photoshop was like the greatest invention for you like ever, that like it just changed everything in terms of actually having to go to like final pieces and things like that. Like,
I probably know 1% of what Photoshop actually does.
Oh, of course.
But how I do my artwork is I still pretty much do everything the same way I did it in art school. I just do a drawing on a piece of paper, and then when I make screen prints or color them in, as I'm going to do with your posters, I scan the line artwork, and then I usually can't help myself by cleaning it up till the end of time, because once you stick the art in Photoshop and can blow up a 1/4-inch area into 2 feet, wide, you get or at least I get very anal retentive and try to make every line just perfect. And then I'll color it on a different layer, or in the case of screen prints, each layer will be a different color. So Steve at Screwball Press, who does my screen prints here in Chicago, can make the plates, or whatever the term is for the different layers of colors.
No, that's all great stuff for people out there to know just about how this stuff gets done, especially nowadays. And you are one of my favorite type of artists in that you are I guess the reason I asked this question is because you are a hybrid artist. So you're not a strictly digital guy like a lot of people are nowadays. You have a foot in both worlds, if that's the right expression. Like, you're a fantastic inker, and I love all of your black and white just ink drawings and everything like that. Like, right now I'm looking at the poster you did for the Tura documentary, I believe.
Right.
And I'm just seeing like the whole process of that, how you basically did the main figure, very heavy blacks, and then you had all the individual faces, all the little details and stuff like that. And again, it's a great kind of indicator of things that you can do nowadays if you're like a new artist and you have like ideas and ambitions and want to do things. You don't have to go one way or the other, or like you don't have to commit to being all digital anymore. You can do both, like, and have something be like excellent like that. Posters, like a lot of your work is, you don't like ever like digitally ink anything. You always try to is it important for you, I guess what I'm trying to say, that you maintain that balance for yourself, that you want that tactile feel for yourself while you're creating a piece leading into the finish.
I don't think there's that much noble reasoning behind what I do. It's just that I don't want to learn something new, and I'm not going to learn how to ink a pad or whatever the term is. So I just know how to ink on a piece of paper, and I'm just going to go with that. I'll just clean up the artwork in Photoshop, but I won't ink anything. I have no idea how that's done. I mean, I see people do it, but it's not in my brain isn't big enough to figure something else out.
I mean, it's great. Like, you could do a lot of stuff with it, but I'll say it's probably it's not as fun as really doing it, like really having an actual like physical piece of paper with a brush or a dip pen or whatever you want to do. It's far more satisfying that you actually have that piece in front of you in that case. So only from my point of view, I think it's definitely.
But I find Photoshop helpful too. Like with that Tura piece you mentioned, I did that, like those were like multiple drawings I combined where I had the figure of Tura as one drawing, then I did all the faces as separate drawings, and all the lettering in the background was another image. And then it's very helpful in Photoshop to shrink things, enlarge, move them around, cut them up. So that is a lot easier than, slapping another coat of white out on your artwork and trying to redraw something a little bit smaller or move things around. So it makes it a lot more relaxing, tweaking your artwork and adjusting things.
Oh yeah, free transform is my best friend in Photoshop,
right?
And just making all those adjustments. It's pretty obvious that you're a huge comic book fan, and you mentioned some names before. I guess want to just maybe get an idea of kind of what books did you read, or like what artists did you first notice that you're just like, kind of really gave you that jump. You're like, whoa, this is something else. This is in my wheelhouse. Like I'm kind of feeling this. I guess I'm asking like what kind of gave you a little bit of that sparking of inspiration from the comic book angle.
Yeah, it was, well, I was born in 61, so I was like crazy for comics in the the 70s, and that's when the studio of Wrightson and Kaluta and Jeff Jones and Barry Smith, and I learned my anatomy by my mom had a copy of Dynamic Figure Drawing by Bern Hogarth, so that's how I learned through how he figured out anatomy and just transferred it to my own artwork. So I was drawn, as I said previously, just to anybody that had a cool style. They're endless. Neil Adams with another one, Steranko, as I think I already said. So many great artists, and I had so much fun, copying their artwork and sitting and watching TV with endless stacks of 8.5 by 11 typing paper and just doing endless marker drawings of looking at comic books. So they all inspired me, but I think Wrightson was probably my favorite because he had that horror angle and all the shadows and all the spittle between teeth when someone opened their mouth. All that great stuff, which of course he got from the EC comics, which I didn't. And then after figuring that out, of course, I love the EC and, on and on and on.
Speaking of Bernie Wrightson, like, one thing I noticed recently, I didn't know about this before. I think he did a Simpsons comic, like a Treehouse of Horror, and which was like out of characters. Like, why would you get Bernie Wrightson to do the Simpsons? Because you kind of have to work off of the you can't really deviate the design at all, at least not in that case. You got to keep it pretty close to the style guide. But if you look at just the way that it's inked, the way that it's drawn, like you could tell, like, oh man, this is Bernie Wrightson drawing The Simpsons, and it's so weird. It's like a really kind of creepy, I guess creepy as much as The Simpsons can get, kind of horror comic, but it has that undertone that you get, even though he's drawing in a different style, you just know. Like it, I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I'll have to look for it. I haven't seen it. My friend Hillary Barta did a lot of the Treehouse of Horrors one, and it seemed from buying his issues that they really looked for artists that they liked, that whoever the editors were liked. So they would reach out to people that influenced them or they were giant fans of, and I'm sure that's how it worked out with Wrightson.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. Hopefully you'll be out on the lot for the Waters event so you guys can meet in person.
I would love to be.
Tom really has risen up and does so much for the Mahoning in way of just the way that we're perceived, getting the imagery out there in a cool way, our merchandise. It's just taken us to a whole other level. So
I know, but it's all great stuff.
Oh, we love that. Mark, you got anything for Mitch? I know you are just as big, if not as a bigger fan than I am.
Absolutely. So a couple here. Prepare yourself. So I've seen photos that you post of when you're doing a piece, you have reference images scattered about yourself. How many do you usually use for a piece? Does it depend on the piece, or do you like a set sort of, I mean, it's not a specific number, but a set general number to get various perspectives?
As I mentioned again, I mean, as I mentioned previously, I really like art where you can tell the difference between art that someone thought through and art that someone's just winging it. So I'll always probably go overboard on trying to figure out what I'm doing. Like I did speaking of things you loved when you were a child, I did a screen print of Kiss Meets the Phantom.
Oh, I love that.
That crazy TV movie that I remember getting very excited to watch it, where I had my pizza ready and my Hawaiian punch, and I was sitting in front of the TV set, and I was all revved up. And even then, when it ended, I was going, that wasn't quite right. And
that's a way to put it.
So I'm thinking, I want to do art that I want to do, and there's never really been a poster for that. So I thought I'll work up a poster. So the research I did was like trying to figure out every little speck of their costumes, taking screenshots of all the different monsters, trying to figure out if any of them were wearing masks that were like available to the general public, or just trying to narrow down trying to figure out the actors that played the monsters, because some of them are just wearing a little bit of makeup, some of them are wearing a lot of makeup. It was just piles of reference. And sometimes you feel like your art should be a lot better, because when you look at the pile of research you've done and then you look at your artwork, you're thinking, it really should have been a little more spectacular. But I do enjoy doing the research, and I don't like just to fudge something or just guess. I'd rather know what it looks like and then go from there. Because one thing I learned in, I lost my train of thought. So I guess I didn't really learn what I was going to say. But if I do remember, I'm going to blurt it out during someone else's.
Scream, hey, wait, and then wait a really long time, and then continue. Speaking of research that was probably enjoyable, whose bosoms stood in for Dolly Parton's bosoms in the art of Dolly Parton?
I
consider myself a knockerologist to an extent. I could not identify.
You have a doctorate?
Well, it's unofficial. It's written on the back of a menu, but I'd like to show it to people once in a while. And the menu. I just didn't know if there was anyone specific or if it was an amalgam of bosoms.
I tried to emulate what I imagined her bosoms to look like. And that was done with love, because everybody on God's green earth loves Dolly Parton.
Yes.
And so I had two jokes. Well, I had two things going with that one. The mystery of that she's tattooed, because she always wears long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
People have mentioned in books where they've seen her like in her bra or something that she's covered with tattoos, very pastel like light tattoos. And I had two jokes going on that one. The other joke was, if she has a giant wig, I'm thinking she might have a equally dolled up bush. So I gave her a very beauty parlor
quaff.
And I heard secondhand that someone got her to sign one of my screenplays.
Yes.
She actually got a laugh out of it.
Amazing.
That was my intention, that if she saw it, she would get a kick out of it, because I'm assuming she has a sense of humor. And and since I was coming from the angle of, I love Dolly Parton like everybody else does, and I think this is funny. And according to the secondhand information, that she thought it was funny too.
Amazing.
And that was also, I saw you that was created to be a gigantic canvas as well, was it not?
Right. There was one year I couldn't attend the Dirty Show. We mentioned the Dirty Show earlier, which usually takes place in February in Detroit, and it's just a huge, like 20,000 people attended. It's wonderful. And I mentioned the John Waters year that he was there. But one year I couldn't attend, so they had the idea of, I wanted the artwork. They blew up the artwork to be life size. So Dolly Parton would be exactly 5 feet tall, not including her giant beehive. Because I thought it'd be funny if people wanted to pose with it. So they had it on the walls. The actual art, I think, was 7 feet tall, so Dolly would be 5 feet tall.
Genius.
Now, semi-related in terms of theme here, do you have a favorite Russ Meyer film?
Well, of course, Faster Pussycat, because I'm a big Tura Satana fan. An example of doing things you like, I was doing the Tattoo Factory in Chicago had this adjacent big space next to the Tattoo Factory itself, and we would put on art shows there. And since he wasn't charging us anything, and I didn't need to make any money off it, we had fun art events. And one year, we came up with having Tura Satana there and a Tura Satana themed art show.
What?
So it's these kind of, you don't know what you're doing, but it ends up just a wonderful event. So
That's like most of our events.
you don't know what you're doing. It's just magic. I mean, you go into it with ignorance because you don't know what it entails. And you just figure out everything as you go along. So it ended up being this really fun event where Tura came out. We had go-go dancers. We had, fire eaters. And we had the whole place was filled with like 30 different artists did their own interpretations of Tura Satana. We ended up at the Music Box Theater showing Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. We went out to dinner, every night with her. The guy from the Tattoo Factory owner rented a limo to drive us around. It was Tura was just showing off karate, kicking in the air, telling endless stories. And me, 35 years younger, during the screening of Faster Pussycat, I fell asleep within 1 minute because I just could not keep up with her. So she was a force of nature and an extraordinary person and wonderful to be around with. So it's any chance I get to do a Tura illustration, case in point, one of the posters for the documentary, I just jump at the chance. And all Russ Meyer films are fun.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. That's why I was just curious, because I knew you'd be well versed in them. So if you were to create a piece featuring Ernest Borgnine, what would the theme, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to, what does that conjure? What kind of a theme would that be if you had to do a
I was just watching him in The Wild Bunch while I was drawing this afternoon. He's in so many good films, and he's great. I just saw him in, what's the film where he's Emperor of the North?
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Movie.
Oh man, he is just demented.
We always joke about
that one.
We always joke about programming a full weekend and calling it Borg9 and show nine Borg9 movies over 3 nights.
Yeah, Mark, that was some unsubtle weaseling you did there.
I'm subconsciously angling for Mitch to do the Borg9 poster.
I would love to. If you have that, put me on the list.
Hell yes.
And so many genre films like Escape from New York and on and on.
Yeah.
Black Hole, Devil's Reign, endless. It's endless.
It's endless.
And we can finally play Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, what I remember is the Poseidon Adventure is one of the films I saw at the drive-in, and the memory of him on that ladder that's like
burning.
The water rises over him, and then you see his hands coming up the ladder, coming through the water. That's an image that's stuck in my head since I was a little kid.
I love that movie so much.
We've been trying to get that for the theater, but a print of it is not readily available. And since we're all 35, we sort of try to stick to our guns on that. One last thing, Chicago-based, if this means anything to you, does the name Evening Tides Waterbeds mean anything to you?
Oh my gosh.
I moved to Chicago in 79 or 80. And so I think I missed the big peak
waterbed craze.
And I love the concept of waterbeds. I mean, that's one of you name the great things that, like drive-ins, you think of custom vans
Yep.
water beds, miniature golf, roller rinks. All those things are just the wheelhouse of what makes America great.
That's right.
I think I miss those commercials.
I acquired years ago on 35 millimeter a commercial for Evening Tides Waterbeds, which was a Chicagoland institution for a few years, I guess. And it is so wonderfully, insanely disco-fied and brilliant in its insanity that I've shown it. We have Patreon shows that are just for our Patreon members, and it's become this cult phenomenon. And I just figured I would ask somebody from Chicago if they had heard of Evening Tides. I'll send you a link privately to that commercial, and you'll never be the same again.
I know, because one of my eBay searches is waterbed catalog. When you asked me that question, you were asking the right person. I
just had a mouthful of water that I didn't spit into the microphone when you. That's perfect.
Yeah. In my bedroom, I went with I have a big round bed that's with mirrors and it's covered in faux fur.
Nice.
So I didn't really want to have a water bed. I went, sideways in the tackiness department.
It all works. Jeff, do you have anything for the great Mitch O'Connell?
Now, you guys asked pretty much the questions that I was thinking of, but I just want to tell Mitch that I love his work. I just think it's fantastic. And I'm so glad.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad we got you on the podcast.
Well, it's a privilege to be asked. I'm really happy to be involved in this. I'm really happy to be involved with this upcoming project, and I can't wait to work on my Borgnine drawing. I'm already anticipating it.
Now we have to do the show. Perfect.
I'm telling you, it's happening. It's just molding.
It's hilarious. It's going to be so fun to promote that.
Once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime. Well, being the drive-in podcast, we always like to ask people, if you could take over the Mahoning for a night, for a weekend, where does your head go as far as the programming, whether it's a double feature or a marathon run?
That would be such a wonderful undertaking that I would not want to even think about blurting something off the top of my head. That would be many hours of meditation and scrawling in many legal pads, and it would take me a while to come up with the actual
breakdown, that list.
That would be a very important thing to come up with, and I would not want to screw it up. So,
oh my goodness,
you have to give me a little bit of time.
You think about it. We'll share it when the podcast hits the socials. Speaking of socials, why don't you let the folks know where they can find you, follow you, give you that love? The
website's mitchoconnell.com. So it's just mitchoconnell.com. And on Instagram, where I post the flea market finds every Sunday and art and whatever else I can come up with, it's Mitch O'Connell Art, since apparently there's another Mitch O'Connell out there somewhere.
We cannot recommend these socials enough. Like I said, every single time you come across the feed, it's inspiring, gives us a chuckle, gives us a laugh. It's excellent. So keep doing what you're doing and keep
doing what you're doing, because you're much more inspirational and exciting and vibrant and a wonderful mecca for what makes America great and what makes culture great.
That means so much to us. You have no idea.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a gift, and a true privilege to be able to run this place with the greatest team in the world, and embracing and being embraced by artists and creatives like yourself it's just mind blowing. We couldn't be any happier. So hopefully we get a great turnout for that event. Hopefully the weather's perfect and we're going to have the best time ever on the lot. Can't wait to meet you in person.
It's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait either.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, my friend. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field. And most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.